Hello friend, today we are going to discuss about Kubernetes components. It is very important if you are learning from beginning to advanced. So it is important that you must be know about the Kubernetes components. So let's move on our topics. It's our architecture of Kubernetes where we have a multiple components you can see here. We have a two things here. One is master which known as a controller server also, and second is a node which known as a worker also. We have a two worker 1, worker 2 and master, where we have a multiple things which you need to be know about, just like a these are the component. API server, it is our components. You must be know that what is API server and how does it work. And controller manager, it is also our component. Etcd, it is a component. Scheduler, it is a component. Kubelet, kubeproxy, pod, container, docker, these are the components of the Kubernetes. I think you have heard about Docker and container in the Docker topics. If you not have heard, so you can see our series where we have make the video on the Docker and container, so you can learn about Docker and container. If you have heard, so let's move on and we see that all these the components of the Kubernetes. So what is our first components? We have divided here Kubernetes component divided into two parts. First is master and controller components. Second is worker and node components. Master controller components. First, our component is Kube API server. The API server is a component of the Kubernetes control plane that exposes the Kubernetes API. The API is the front end of the Kubernetes control panel. Cube API server is our front end where all the nodes and worker and controller, when they have to talk, so in that case firstly they will connect their API, and then that process will be done in from our controller. So means API is a front end where you have to connect our work node and you can connect with your controller. So API is a main part of these Kubernetes components, that you can say that it is a front end where your components and controller and all these components have to connect through the API, and they can get the resource as per the API server, Kube API server. etcd, consistent and highly available key value stored, used as Kubernetes backing store for all cluster data. If your Kubernetes cluster use etcd as its backing store, make sure you have a backup plan for those data. etcd is a, what is this? Is a, you can say that storage where you have to persist and consist your data in etcd whenever you have to do any task, any updates, any version. So your all information about your network and your Kubernetes components, so it will consist all information about your Kubernetes. Kube scheduler, control panel component that waits for newly created pod with no assigned node and select a node for them to run on. Control panel components that was newly created, that whenever you create a new pod, that will be managed and controlled by Cube Scheduler. Factors taken into account for scheduling decisions including individual and collective resource requirement, hardware, software, policy constraint, affinity and anti-affinity, specialization, data locality, inter-workload interference, and deadlines. In this case, we use Cube Scheduler. And next is our Cube Controller Manager. It is a main Cube Controller Manager panel component that run controller process. Whatever we control, that will be managed by the Cube Control Manager. Logically, each controller is a separate process, but it reduces complexity. They are all compiled into a single binary and run in a single process. Actually, we have a multiple, you can say the tasks where you have to perform and which will be done in by the control manager. Logically, it will be do in the separate process, but it will reduce the complexity and it will run in a single binary process. Next is our worker nodes components. Kubelet, an agent that run on each node in the cluster. It makes sure that containers are running in a pod. It is a kubelet is an agent which is run on each node in the cluster. If you have a multiple node in a cluster, so it will run in each and every node, that make sure that container are running in a pod or not. If any container is not running, that will be pass out the information about their API server, and API server will forward to controller and scheduler, and that will be create another container in that pod, or might be that create another pod also. The kubelets take a set of port specs that are provided through a various mechanism and ensure that the container described in those port specs are running and healthy. There is a mechanism which is make sure that the port specs are running healthy or running good. The kubelet does not manage containers which were not created by Kubernetes. Kubelet does not manage containers which were not created by Kubernetes. Kubeproxy. Kubeproxy is a network proxy that run on each node in a cluster. Implementing part of the Kubernetes service concept, kubeproxy maintain network rules on nodes. These network rules allow network communication to your ports for network session inside or outside of your cluster. Kubeproxy use the operating system packet filtering layer if there is one and it's available. Otherwise, kubeproxy forward the traffic itself. It is very important that all the concern related the network that will be managed by kubeproxy. Container runtime. The container runtime is a software that is responsible for running container. Container runtime, that is a software which is responsible for container is running or not. I hope this video is helpful for you. So please subscribe our channel and hit the bell icon to get more update first. Thanks for watching.